So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this conversation about a circular economy for South West Wales. We're talking about waste materials, and this is a conversation that we're hosting in the run-up to the Green Economy Conference, which is happening in Swansea on the 22nd of November. And I'm delighted today to have brought together some experts and thought leaders in Wales's circular economy to talk to us about what's already happening across our region and really to have a discussion about the importance of being much more mindful in our use and reuse of resources and materials. And this, I think, is all part of creating a resilient green economy for the future and for ensuring that we are making best use of the wealth and resources that we already have in a way that enables us to regenerate our natural environment and stop the crazy destruction of our natural environment and our planet. You know, we must think about the word waste as a verb rather than a noun, that we're wasting precious and valuable materials whenever we throw anything away. And I'm hoping that my colleagues here in the room this morning will shine a light on some of the great initiatives that are happening, but also the changing state of waste and materials in Wales, because there are some key new bits of legislation and policy coming up, and I've got colleagues here to help explain some of that. So thanks all for joining me for this discussion. Andy, I'd love to hear from you from Welsh Government perspective first of all. Kick us off, set the scene. Wales is really high up there, isn't it, in terms of a recycling nation, but what's happening, what's the latest, and what are you talking about today?
Okay, thanks, Dawn. Good morning, everyone. Bore da. Well, I suppose we need to start a bit higher above the waste hierarchy. Recycling is good, but there's a lot of other things we need to do to try and reduce the amount of resources that we use. The planet, only has a finite amount of resource. Everybody around the world aspires to our standard of living, but we don't have 3 planets worth of resources to sort of sustain that level of consumption. So we need to be a lot more clever about how we design products and goods and the sort of services and where we derive our happiness from. Is it through buying lots of stuff, or is it through doing something else, enjoying services and that sort of thing? So that is really important. And businesses, who want to sell something, quite rightly, need to really think about the sort of product that they're selling, whether they can lease it, hire it, rent it, keep it in. And then it's really important that we keep products and materials in productive use for as long as possible. So things like repair, reuse, remanufacture, repurpose, re-engineer. And then if we can't do those great things and avoid waste, the waste needs to be recycled. And we need to keep those, that recyclate within the Welsh economy if we can. We have some great recycling companies like Tata, Celsa. We've got a new company, J-Plas, coming in to recycle plastic in Gorsinon. We've got Smile Plastics, who turn plastic waste into some fantastic products. They're a micro business based in Swansea. Lots of other companies do a fantastic job with recycling. And of course, we've got representatives on the panel who play an important role in all of this. So we're doing lots of things in Welsh Government. I could spend hours talking about various things, but I do need to mention the workplace recycling regulations that we are intending to come into force on the 6th of April next year. The word workplace has been thought through about how we describe this, but it actually describes all non-domestic premises in Wales. So that's all businesses, all charities, and all public sector bodies. The only exclusions are domestic properties and caravans. So everyone else has to separate out their recyclables and present them separately for collection. And then those collecting those recyclables, some of them are represented on this panel, then have to keep those recyclable materials separate and cannot mix them. So the materials that need to be separated into different streams or presented separately are glass in one stream, paper and card in another, then metal, plastic, cartons, and similar items to cartons like paper cups, Pringles tubes, etc., in another stream. Food waste from premises producing more than 5 kilograms of food waste per more a week, And then for anyone who has who sells small waste electrical equipment or textiles, any unsold items also have to be separated out and certainly not sent to incineration or landfill. None of those separated materials can go to incineration or landfill. Also, there'll be a ban on all wood waste going to landfill. So that includes from construction sites. So that's not just separately collected wood waste, that's all wood waste. And there'll also be a ban on putting food waste to sewer in future. So those are the main provisions of it. WRAP is running a webinar next week on the 26th. So have a look at their website on that. And there is guidance on our website, general guidance.
Thanks, Andy. It sounds like a huge change, and it sounds very similar to the sorts of sorting of different recycling materials that we're all quite used to kind of residentially and domestically. I suppose my big question, and perhaps I'll come to Griffith Group first of all, we've got Andrew Wright and Gareth Thomas here from Griffith Group, is, are we ready for this? Are businesses ready, and are you guys ready to start handling all these new materials that now, quite rightly, need to be put to much better use? Andrew?
There's some exciting times ahead for waste businesses and local authorities. I think both are potentially going to benefit from a business perspective from these changes, but it does obviously present challenges from a collection point of view and also storing the materials. I'm sure many waste businesses like ourselves are having to put in provisions to accommodate these materials coming in separately, rather than currently the way that we would do it is bring it in mixed and segregate them. I think it's a positive change. I commend the Welsh Government for putting things like this in place, because a lot of other countries are not doing so. I think the biggest question for me is, are the businesses and the premises that are having to do this ready? From our experience, Gareth, I'm sure you would agree with me on this, they're not currently, but there is still time. And, although the changes are big in principle, I think in the cases of what the individual businesses are going to have to do, they're not that significant when you look at the bigger picture and sort of take a step back and review what the current practices are. It's just a case of pre-planning, I think, getting the right waste contractors in place to ensure that they're compliant for you as a customer. Yeah, I think it's all about pre-planning, making sure that they can do what they're being asked of, and it's not a huge task in reality. And it is, I think, over time going to make a big difference to the Welsh circular economy and, of course, the quality of the recycler that everybody's receiving and processing. So, Gareth, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, I just think, for us as a business, probably the same for Sean and Cum, it's a case of educating customers. And I think for companies like ourselves and, the Cum and the other companies out there, who are, larger operators, I think, we'll be very well planned for this. And I think it will give us a unique selling point against, other waste, companies, because, we'll be working with our customer base, to make sure. And, obviously we're talking to other suppliers at the minute to look at, how we deal with this waste. So, we'll obviously be ready for the change. It's just educating our customers over the next few months, and then we'll be ready to obviously roll this out in line with the Welsh Assembly next year.
Good to hear from you guys, and I'm really interested to understand what will happen to the materials once they are collected and segregated by and within your organisations. I know in previous conversations, Griffiths Group, you've been connected with companies like Smile Plastic to try and find those customers and businesses within our region who can use the materials that you're collecting. Is that happening at scale? How can we enable more of that to happen?
I think the clear need and requirement at the moment is investment into infrastructure within Wales. We all try to keep as much waste in Wales, but some of it obviously still needs to be exported. If you look at cardboard and paper, for example, there's not huge volumes reused in Wales. And I think that's possibly some consideration I think the government needs to do. They do invest in businesses, of course, There are grants available, particularly for research and development, which is all really helpful. Companies, Andy mentioned Smile Plastics, of course, and J-Plas. That is a hugely welcome addition to the Welsh infrastructure. It's something that's desperately needed. So I think when you look at the waste streams which businesses are now going to have to segregate, I think a large proportion of it, which is positive, will be reused or be able to be reprocessed in Wales. So yeah, I think it's continual investment into what is needed in order to reuse these materials in Wales and particularly reprocess them.
Andy, is that investment happening?
Yes, definitely. The J-Plas plant is a good example of 100,000 tonne per annum plastic recycling plant that'll take plastic bottles, pots, tubs and trays and plastic film. That's really important. Also, there are companies like Erin who have taken over UPM Shotton, who are converting that from a newsprint mill into a cardboard making mill. And I'm pretty sure they will be sourcing many 100,000 tonnes of cardboard to process through that plant. Also, there is a new glass bottle manufacturing factory from China that is planned for Ebbw Vale, and I believe they'll be using a large amount of recycled glass. At the moment, quite a lot of our glass goes to Recresco for sorting in Cwmbran, and that then goes to the Knauf glass insulation fibre manufacturing plant in Cwmbran. Also, I visited Tata Steel the other day with the advisory committee on packaging, and they take a lot of scrap and put that into their into the basic oxygen, the BOSS system there. But of course, they're now planning to move to electric arc that will take almost 100% recycled steel. Also, the Celsa plant in Cardiff that makes reinforced bars, I think, takes over 1 million tonnes of scrap metal a year, including steel cans. So we've got quite a good reprocessing industry in Wales already. Some of it is UK scale, but we can always do more, of course.
That sounds really positive, and yeah, great to hear about all those new businesses locating here to help turn that waste material into value for our economy. I'd like to bring in Owen Griffiths from Circular Resource Specialists. We're talking about businesses and their waste, but I think you, as Andy said right at the beginning of the conversation, this conversation is bigger, isn't it, than just what we do with our waste materials at the end of the line. It's about how businesses think from the ground up about their processes and their manufacturing and their businesses as a whole. What do you think businesses feel about the circular economy? Are they aware of it? Are they thinking about more precious use of resources and materials, or are businesses too busy and carrying on business as usual? What's your perspective, Owen?
Thank you, Dawn. Yeah, great to be here. I think, yeah, there's a bit of a difference. I think, you know, a number of businesses are fully aware of what is happening with the circular economy, are looking to sort of purchase materials that are made out of recyclable materials, develop items and products that can be repaired and reused, and then, you know, produce a high quality material, high quality recyclables out of those things. So yeah, definitely there's a shift towards it. I think when it comes to waste at the moment, waste can be often sort of overlooked, seen as a fixed cost. And I think the shift to these regulations will actually hopefully spur a lot of organisations into looking at their recyclables a bit more, looking at the waste they're producing, and then, yeah, really sort of shifting that down the line, taking those quality materials and just being able to sort of develop that domestic reprocessing within the UK, high quality materials, that circular loop back in.
Yeah, I think when we're noticing what we're throwing away and when we're having to pay for throwing things away, we're much more likely to recognise that there's actually huge value in those materials. As partners have said in the room today, loads of opportunities. I'd like to come to you, Diane. Diane Thomas is Waste Strategy and Policy Officer in Carmarthenshire. Diane, what's your perspective on some of this?
Within Carmarthenshire, we've been really, really keen to embrace everything to do with the circular economy and to move forward with the collections blueprint that the Welsh Assembly put forward in their waste strategy. We were, or in fact still are, a commingled collection authority, but we are going to move towards the collections blueprints, and we're doing that in stages. The first stage was implemented in January, where we introduced a curbside glass collection. And we've also been going towards 3 weekly black bag collections and weekly blue bag collections, which is our dry recycling. But obviously the plan is to move towards a full curbside collection system in the next couple of years. In terms of circular economy, we've invested along with our Teckle company in introducing a reuse village and a reuse shop. The village, I think, is the first of its kind in Wales. We've also simultaneously helped with the Teckle to introduce the commercial recycling facility at our Nantec House site in preparation for the workplace regs. And we're currently working with WRAP and Circulogic to look at our own office buildings and how the workplace regs will impact us. And we're working quite closely with the Teckle company as well.
Really interesting to talk for a little bit about the reuse village in particular, and perhaps Sean from Com Environmental would like to come in on some of this as well. But that sounds like a project to really start shifting the culture around circular economy principles.
Yeah, we introduced or developed the reuse village 18 months ago. It's been running about a year or so now, and it's been a huge success. So in principle, the reuse village consists of a number of areas. So we, first and foremost, is the repair workshop. So we've got the repair workshop where we repair, could be lawnmowers, servicing bikes. We do lots of training and education in there as well. We create new products from wood, so nothing goes to waste in the reuse village. And then they're sold back into the community then via the village itself. But what we knew we had to do was create a community hub rather than just a reuse shop. We had to create something where it invited people in, so the children are interested. And the reuse village, in effect, it consists of a paint sales outlet, which we create paint on site, so we recycle and sell back to the community. There's a bike shed, in effect, so there's a number of bikes with perfectly good condition, doors and furniture. There's a general shop facility, gym equipment, bric-a-brac, could be children's books. There's an electrical waste facility as well, so we're repairing TVs and testing toasters and all sorts. There's a garden centre, so again, all the garden equipment, and there's also the education centre around schools and college visits. But part of it's really caught the imagination of Carmarthenshire and wider afield, but we're hugely focused on the education programme with the schools. So we're partnering with Smile Plastics. So last year we did partner with Swiftability in Swansea, Coming Carmarthenshire and Smile Plastics. So we did the beach cleanser on that, creating products then from the waste materials. We're also working with, we're trying to tie in the natural environment and biodiversity. So we put a huge effort into that because we know that's what, again, captures the imagination. So we plant, linked to the reuse village is the sunflower field. So we've got an 11-acre sunflower and wildflower meadow. We've also got beehives on site. So there's just short of 1 million bees on site, and we're now producing honey and selling honey via the reuse village. So linked to that, the food manufacturers is an allotment. When the school visits come in, we get them to plant things, we grow materials, and then we make that material available for staff and for reuse visitors. And then the most recent addition is the education trail. So there's an education trail for the small school kids that come in, and we've made all sorts of, it's fantastic in fairness. So the staff have made like a hedgehog house. They've created a small solar panel with a water pump to show how energy is generated, and we can recirculate water. There's a number of things going on there, so it's really it's been really successful.
Very exciting to hear about that. Thanks, Sean. And it seems to us like we need one of those in every village across Wales and beyond. Yeah, that circular economy approach of the importance of the natural environment as well, and bringing in food production into that as well as materials and manufacturing sounds very holistic. Really great to hear about that project. What else is Com Environmental up to, and how are you preparing for changes in legislation that are coming down the line?
Com is a long-standing company. We were originally a landfill-based company 20 years ago. So when the recycling targets came in, landfill tax, we had to find new ways of treating the waste, because even though waste has always been around, the industry itself is in its infancy, really. The non-domestic premises regulations, it is a challenge. it's also an opportunity for us. So any change in legislation is an opportunity for companies like Coleman, Griffiths, and other waste contractors. But we're well underway on gearing up for the new collections. Advising customers is key. We've got thousands of customers that we collect across the Southwest region. Customers are unaware, so we're speaking to lots of businesses. They are unaware of these changes. The small businesses have no idea it's coming. So I think it's key that the education around the new change in regulations are not left just to companies like Waste, like Cum. There has to be a huge campaign around that, which I believe is under development. There's a chance that collections costs are going to go up, because where we used to be able to use one vehicle to collect waste from a collection round, we might well have to use 2, 3, 4 different vehicles. So there is a knock-on effect on emissions and collection costs. So it's excellent in principle, but there are going to be some challenges. I think it's going to be a challenge for businesses and other operators as well.
It's certainly clear to me that the Welsh Government is not shying away from making some difficult decisions that prioritise the well-being of future generations, which is, of course, what this is all about. So consider how all of us can encourage more circular economy thinking across our organisations and across our communities. Of course, the community sector is also leading the way. We're seeing lots of sort of plastic-free initiatives and small community-based innovations around circular economy thinking and community-based reuse and repairing and recycling. So it is an exciting sector and lots happening. So come along to the Green Economy Conference on the 22nd of November to talk about all this and more. We'll be joined by CAKE, which is the Circular Economy's Innovation Communities project. Thanks all for taking part in today's conversation, and we'll look forward to catching up again soon.